deal with legal, administrative and financial issues related to the different research framework programs. As you can imagine, my unit, the Common Legal Support Service, has been very busy in the last months preparing the legal framework for Horizon 2020, and we are also very busy preparing at the moment how to implement Horizon 2020. On the presentation, I am going to highlight the main elements and objectives which are fundamental for preparing a call for proposals. I am also going to set out what has been kept in Horizon 2020 compared with EP7 and what is new. At the end of the presentation, if there is any time left and you have enough energy and you're not too tired, I will be available to answer any question, or afterwards, if you want, you come to me to ask whatever you want. And also, any feedback from your side will be very much appreciated. So now, let's go with the presentation. Which are the main objectives of the rules for participation? The first one is innovation. Sorry. Let's not go back. Maybe the technicians can help me. Sorry, it's okay. Normally it's supposed to be, for the technicians, 1 second. Normally it's supposed to be come up with different, the PowerPoint is not working properly. Yes, and with PowerPoint it's possible to present the things as well. Anyway, so the first main objective is innovation. We try to be innovative with the framework program and the rules of participation. We try to promote innovation, but also we try to create innovative rules. The second main objective is simplification. The European Commission is committed to simplify the implementation of the framework program. We want to simplify the administrative and financial provisions to make the framework program more accessible to participants and also to reduce the financial errors. But simplification is not an easy issue and is perceived in a different way by the stakeholders. What is easy for one person is complex for another. And also, if we talk about the financial provisions, then we get into the monetary dimension and become more complex. And the three main objectives is coherence. The rules for participation are coherent between the different parts, and also they try to be coherent between the European Union Research Framework Programme and the other European Union programs. So we try to keep similar rules and a certain coherence. In FP7, there were different rules for the different programs. So we have different rules for the GTIs and other programs implemented on the basis of Article 187 of the treaty, different rules for the programs managed by the European Institute of Technology. We have also different rules for the programs managed by the member states on the basis of Article 135 of the treaty, and this is going to finish in Horizon 2020. In the new framework program, we are going to have a single set of rules. This means concretely that we are going to take the European Union financial regulation applicable to the European budget. We are going to take its implementation rules, plus we are going to add some specific rules for participation, and this is the set of rules that are going to apply to all the programs under Horizon 2020. And of course, we are going to keep some flexibility to establish specific rules when needed and justified for the specific programs or activities. Which are the minimum conditions for participation? For a collaborative standard project, the minimum conditions will be 3 independent legal entities, establish each of them in a different member state or associated country. And for the ERC Research Frontier actions, for the SME instrument, the program co-fund, the coordination and support, and the training and mobility actions, which are the Maria Sklodowska actions. For all of those, the minimum condition is one legal entity established in a member state or in an associated country. But the work program or the work plan can establish other conditions for participation with regard to the number of participants, type of participants, for example, only SMEs, or with regard to the place of establishment of the legal entities. Which are going to be the criteria for the evaluation of the proposals. The proposals are going to be evaluated by the independent experts, and there are three criteria: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation of the action. Excellence refers to the clarity and pertinence of the objectives, and also the evaluators are going to check if the proposal is credible. For the impact, the evaluators have to check the list of impacts established in the corresponding work program and with regard to the relevant topic. And for quality and efficiency of the action, the experts have to check the pertinence, the efficiency of the work plan, and also they have to evaluate the distribution of tasks and resources, as well as the complementarity between the participants and the adequacy of the management structures. For the ERC, Frontier Research Actions, there is going to be one criteria only for the evaluation, and is excellence. And for other activities like the innovation actions, there is going to be a higher weighting for the impact criteria. Time to grant. The time to grant is the time between the final date for the submission of a proposal and the signature of the grant agreement. The financial regulation that is common for all the programs in the European Union establishes a time to grant of 9 months. But in the rules for participation in Horizon 2020, the time to grant is established at 8 months. So we are going to speed up the process. And the time to grant is divided in two parts. The first part is for each of 5 months. So for the date of the end date for the submission of proposals to the date when the Commission informs about the results of the evaluation, this is going to be first period 5 months. And the second period is from the date that the participants receive the results of the scientific evaluation of their proposal to the moment the grant agreement is signed, 3 months. But there could be exceptions, and that's going to be the case for the ERC. It's going to be the case if the participants request a different time to grant, or for example, when the proposals are complex, it's necessary to do ethical reviews or evaluations or so on. And how are we going to speed up the process? So, in Horizon 2020, there is not going to be negotiations. The evaluators are going to evaluate the proposals for how they are and not for how they could be. So, there is not going to be negotiations. The grants agreements are going to be done in accordance to the description of work presented at the time of the proposal. Because there is not going to be time for negotiations and for modifying the technical annex. In addition to speed up the process, we are going to validate the legal entities in parallel. So at the time of the submission of the proposals, all the legal entities are going to register in the beneficiary register, are going to get a provisional PIC, so identification number, and then if the proposal is positively evaluated, then the Commission will validate the entity definitively. So the first PIC will be provisional. And also in Horizon 2020, there is not going to be any more paper. Everything is going to be done electronically. So it's foreseen that all the communication between the Commission and the consortium is going to be done through the participant portal, and there has been created the electronic exchange system. So the consortium will communicate with the Commission through this system, and the Commission will inform about everything through the participant portal, the results of the evaluation, all the information. In addition, everything will be submitted and signed electronically. The proposal forms, the negotiation forms, they will be signed and sent electronically, even the grant agreement and the amendments. So for the amendments as well, will be the participants who will prepare the amendment electronically and will submit and sign it to the Commission. Forms of funding. We have kept from FP7 that the main form of funding is going to be through the use of grant agreements, but there is going to be also other ways of funding through prices, public procurement, and we have also kept as main financial system to reimburse costs, the actual cost. But there is also going to be reimbursement on the basis of unit cost and flat rates in certain cases. With regard to the model grant agreement, there is a general model grant agreement, there is a multi-beneficiary version and a single beneficiary version, and this is the general model. And then, based on this general model, we've established derived models, but are based on this one. So the other models that are for the ERC, for the Maria Sklodowska-Curie, for the SME and for the COFAM, they are similar to the General Model Grant Agreement, but derived only in some articles or part of articles, and even they have the same index, all of them. And when an article is not applicable, it says Article 11 not applicable, and so on. With regard to the funding, I presume you know FP7, but in FP7 the funding is given depending on the type of action, depending on the type of beneficiary, and depending on the type of activity. So in FP7, in the same project, we have different rates and different reimbursements. So you had a profit organization, non-profit, you had management activities, research activities, different funding. This is abolished. And in Horizon 2020, we are going to have one project, one rate. And this is going to apply to all the beneficiaries and to all the activities. It will be the same one. The reimbursement rate is going to be established in the work program, and it's established so far up to 100% of the total direct or the total eligible cost. But for the innovation activities, the reimbursement will be 70% of the total cost, eligible cost, but for the non-profit organizations, it will be up to 100% of the total eligible cost. So this is an important simplification. I would like to say more things about the direct personal cost because it's the bigger cost normally in the budget of the participants. And in Horizon 2020 there is going to be wider acceptance of the average personal cost in accordance to the usual accounting practices of the beneficiary. Also in Horizon 2020 we are going to accept the complementary payments, but with some conditions. It will apply only to non-profit organizations with a limit of €8,000 per person per year. But this has to be in accordance with the usual remuneration practices of the legal entity, and the legal entity has to show consistency and that remunerates other activities of the same type, that require the same expertise in the same way. Also, in Horizon 2020, there is going to be a special reimbursement for the SME owners who do not receive a salary, and for the natural persons who do not have a salary when they participate as beneficiaries. Their personal cost is going to be reimbursed on the basis of a unit cost, like in FP7, and it's going to be on the monthly living allowance for the Maria Sklodowska actions. This comes from FP7. It was also a possibility. Also, in Horizon 2020, we are going to require less things for the time recording. This is important. There is going to be no time records for people working full-time on the projects. The participants will have to sign a declaration with a reporting period saying that this person has been working exclusively on the project, and then they will not have to submit time records. So time records will be only for the people who are not working on full-time on the project. And for those, the beneficiary will have to keep time records or in paper or with a computer-based time recording system. Also in the grant agreement, there are other provisions regarding personal costs that have been simplified. For example, with regard to the number of productive hours, there's going to be a standard number of productive hours of 1,740 hours for those who want to use it, and for the other ones they will use their actual hours in accordance with employment contracts. What happens with the indirect costs, with the overheads? In FP7, participants could choose between 4 systems to charge indirect costs. There were the flat rate of 20%, flat rate of 60%, then there was the real cost and the simplified model. So there was a big choice. In Horizon 2020, there is only one single model. It's a flat rate of 25% of the total direct eligible cost. There will be, by way of exception, in some activities, it could be that the flat rate is different, or it could be that instead of flat rate there is a unit cost. Like, for example, for the Maria Sklodowska reactions, that all the costs in Horizon 2020 are going to be unit cost. And the big question is, what is the impact of the new funding model for the new contribution? Is the new system going to be more favorable or not to the beneficiaries? Well, here you have an example. We realized that 90% of the universities and more than half of the research centers in FP7 use the 60% flat rate. So in FP7, in this example, you will see for a participant who had €100 direct cost, flat rate indirect cost 60%, total cost was 160. We apply the FP7 reimbursement rate and we get an in-contribution of 120. We compare it with Horizon 2020, the same participants. 100 total cost, indirect cost 25%, because it's the fixed rate. Total cost becomes 125. So when we apply the reimbursement rate of 100%, we see that the new system, the new funding model is more favorable, at least for these institutions. Under Horizon 2020, there are some new actions, and one is the Fast Track to Innovation Pilot. It's going to be launched in 2015, this year. It's going to have a minimum number of participants of 3 and a maximum number of participants of 5, and the total cost will be, the total contribution, €3 million per project. It's going to be based on a bottom-up approach, research, but not research-driven, but not with the predefined tasks, defined subjects. It's going to be a continuously open call with 3 cut-off days per year. And the time to grant will be 6 months instead of 8 months. The time to grant will go from the cut-off date until the signature of the grant agreement. And it's going to cover all fields across rates and societal challenges. There is another important new instrument in Horizon 2020, and it's the SME instrument. Tomorrow they are going to give you a presentation, but here is just an introduction. So the SME instrument is going to be implemented by a single centralized management structure within one of the European Commission executive agencies. It will be the agency called EASME. It's going to manage these projects. And it's also based on, will have a bottom-up approach, also scientific-driven, but with some limitations. There is going to be a continuously open call. In principle, there are going to be 4 cut-off dates. And the participation is limited to SMEs. Only SMEs can participate in the SME instrument. I also want to say that in Horizon 2020, if an SME that is participating in a project loses status during the implementation of the project because it grows, for example, it will keep the status during the whole duration of the project. So only for new projects we lose the status of SME. So if an SME is not an SME anymore, it will be able to continue participating in the project. Let's say something about controls and audits, something very funny. Financial viability. We are going to analyze the financial viability of all the coordinators for when the project, the contribution is of €500,000 or more. But we are not analyzing the financial viability of public entities, international organizations, natural persons who are applying for a scholarship, neither for the secondary and higher establishments or for entities which are financially guaranteed by a member state or associated country. For the rest of the participants and coordinators, we are going to analyze it when there are serious doubts that the financial viability is not clear. Audit certificates. We also have audit certificates as in FP7. The certificates of financial statements will be submitted at the time of the final payment, and only for those beneficiaries which EU contribution, there is a mistake, is not actual cost, is EU contribution is of 325,000 euro or more. And the certification of the methodology for the average personal cost will be optional. Ex-post audits. The Commission is going to audit the projects is going to be able to audit the projects during their duration, but also after 2 years after the payment of the balance. This is in accordance with the financial regulation, and the Commission audit strategy is going to be based on risk and fraud prevention. For extrapolation, we are going to apply the same rules as they are in the financial regulation, and they've been incorporated into the grant agreement. Extrapolation means to extrapolate the results found in an audit in a project to other projects of the same beneficiary. And with regard to the guarantee fund, the Commission established in FP7 a participants guarantee fund to cover the risk due to the non-refund of amounts due to the European institutions due to in the context of EU research projects. The FP7 Guarantee Fund has been a successful instrument, so the Horizon 2020 Guarantee Fund succeeds and replaces FP7 Guarantee Fund. The funds from FP7 Guarantee Fund were transferred to the Horizon 2020 Guarantee Fund at the end of last year, and it will keep on functioning hopefully until the end of the framework program. International cooperation. The EU Research Framework Program welcomes the participation of legal entities from third countries and the participation of international organizations. There is going to be restrictions only if they are introduced in the work program, and there will be for reciprocity reasons, because, for example, the conditions to participate in the third countries' programs are contrary to the principles of the European Union, for example. And also, there will be maybe some limitations for security reasons. Funding. The legal entities from the countries, in principle, they are not going to be financed, but there are 3 exceptions. When the third country is identified in the work program as it can receive funding. Second case is when the European Commission considers that the participation of that legal entity is essential for the project. And the third case is when it is provided in a bilateral scientific and technological agreement. Only in these cases, the legal entities from third countries or international organizations will be financed. IPR. So, for IPR, what are we going to keep? We are going to keep the ownership. So, as in the past, the ownership of the results will belong to the participant who generates the results. In certain cases, there is going to be joint ownership, but that will be the case when it is not possible to ascertain the contribution of each participant to the joint results. Or also there is going to be joint ownership when it's not possible to separate the property of the results because of IPR protection. We will keep as well the protection. The European Union will be entitled to protect the results if they are capable of commercial exploitation. We are going to keep this protection. The beneficiaries have to do their best efforts to exploit the results or otherwise to give exploitation to another legal entity. And we are going to maintain dissemination. The beneficiaries have to disseminate the results as soon as possible through the appropriate means, unless subject to restrictions because of IPR issues. With regard to the transfer of the ownership of the results and the granting of exclusive license outside the European Union to the associated countries, the grant agreement foresees the possibility to object if a participant has received EU funding. With regard to access rights, a beneficiary may have access rights to the results or background of another beneficiary if the former needs it for the implementation of the project or for exploitation of its own results. And the affiliated entities established in the member states or associated countries, they are also going to have these access rights for implementation and for exploitation reasons. There is going to be IPR tailor-made rules for the security-related activities, the ERC, the SME instrument, the Maria Sklodowska-Curie, the support actions, and for the knowledge and innovation community projects that is a program financed by the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. What is new in IPR? First, that the work program can establish additional dissemination and exploitation obligations. Another novelty, and this is quite important, is in Horizon 2020, open access is going to be mandatory for scientific publications and also to research data in certain areas and when it is foreseen in the work program. The cost related to the open access will be eligible costs if incurred during the duration of the project. In Horizon 2020, in addition, the member states and the Union are going to have access rights to the results of one beneficiary that has received EU funding under all parts of the program, but not for commercial purposes. It will have access rights for monitoring, implementing, or developing European Union programs and policies. And in addition, there will be open access to the results of a beneficiary who has received EU funding for the member states under the Secure Societies activities. The Secure Societies activities is an activity that tries to promote to find the freedom for the citizens in the European Union and one member state. Specific provisions. There will be specific provisions for pre-commercial public procurement and as well for procurement for innovative solutions, which are two new actions in Horizon 2020. And this is more or less the end of my presentation. I would like to tell you where to find more information. I don't know if you are familiar with the participant portal. That is the one single entry point for the European research. There you can find, there's a section called documents, where you can find all the rules to participate in all the grant agreements. There is another section, the online manual. We've published recently the AGA, which is the Annotated Grant Agreement. It's a document explaining all the articles of the grant agreement. It's quite useful. And we are going to publish little by little all the guidelines and all the documents that will be necessary for the follow-up of the project. And there is a help desk. All the questions you want to send on all areas, all topics can be sent to the Research Inquiry Service. There is a central office that receives all the questions and then dispatch them per area. So if it's a question related to the SME instrument, they will send it to the people dealing with the instrument. If it's a question related to a call, so in the Common Legal Support Service where I work, we receive normally the questions related to financial and administrative issues that are general, that affect all the projects. This is the end of my presentation. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. I don't know if you want to ask any question or every time. And of course, I encourage you to participate or to try. Thank you.
dear guests, thank you very much for your participation to the first day of this launch conference. Tomorrow the registration will start at 8:30, and the